Welcome to the WebEx here for the OEOP. We're really excited to have you. And this is our second WebEx for the year. It's our second WebEx for parent seminars. And the focus tonight is getting your team to talk. We're really excited to have Linda back with us and Charmaine joining us to lead this discussion with you. So tonight, I do want to frame again who the OEOP is, the programs that we offer, our mission, vision, and values. We'll go right into our presentation, and then there'll be time at the end for questions and answers. So we'll go to the next slide. The OEOP, the Office of Engineering Outreach Programs, is focused on serving students who come from all different backgrounds, especially students who come from communities who don't always have as much access to go to schools like MIT, but are highly talented and really interested in pursuing careers in science and engineering. And so as an office, we're focused on providing access to all students as much as possible, especially students from those communities. We believe that we will we want our students to learn a tremendous amount. We want to have a diverse group of students that we serve, and we want to transform the lives of our students through our programs. We also understand that there's a really huge impact in the work that we do by ensuring that we have a community that is very supportive of our students as we put them in a very challenging, academic, rigorous learning environment. So we do our work through a number of programs, and all of you are connected in some kind of way to our programs. Your students or your children were one of the 5, most likely. The MICE program was started 40 years ago. It's a 6-week summer program that serves about 70 students last summer. Students take all types of challenging hands-on engineering and science courses. E2 was launched in 2011. Again, awesome opportunity to bring another up to 100 students to campus for 1 week and really expose them to science engineering through one course they take in the afternoon during that week and a lot of tours and seminars around MIT. Most Tech was started in 2011. It's an online blended learning environment where students will be online for 6 months, and then also have the awesome opportunity to come to campus for 5 days for a conference. And for many students, it's the first time they actually participated in a sort of a professionally ran conference. Seed Academy has been around since 2002. It's a Saturday enrichment program where we bring about 90 students to campus on Saturdays for 3.5 years to really expose them to 7 different fields of engineering and science. And the STEM program was started in 2004. The focus of that program is to bring middle school students to campus and really expose them to high school content in science and math and engineering taught by primarily MIT undergrads. And so they finish that program really having a sense of what it means and what it takes to excel in those courses in high school. So that's a quick overview of our programs. I'd like to now introduce Linda Borden, who has been within our office since earlier this year and really helped us with improving, enhancing our student support opportunities that we offer for our students. Hi, Linda.
Hi. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited that the parents are joining us again for our second webinar, and it's very exciting that you're back with us, and I really appreciate those who filled out the survey last time. You were giving us a lot of great feedback, which really helps us both in our ways that we develop the webinar, our technology in getting it to you, our programming, and our responsiveness to you as part of our OEOP family. So thank you for doing that. We are going to send out another survey at the end of this webinar, so if you could take a few minutes to fill it out. It is a new survey. Each time we will send one out, and we really appreciate your feedback again. So tonight we're really excited to have Dr. Charmaine Jackman with us. Many of you have seen her bio. She's going to be presenting on getting your team to talk. And as you have seen, she's a licensed psychologist and director of health and wellness at the Boston Arts Academy, which is a pilot high school here in Boston. And Dr. Jackman has worked with diverse children, adolescents, and families in schools, hospitals, courts, and community settings. And she holds a doctorate degree in counseling psychology from the University of Southern Mississippi. I had the privilege of working with Dr. Jackman while I was a fellow at the Boston Arts Academy, and I can attest to her great gift and expertise in working with both the strengths and the challenges that are presented to this age group that we're talking about. I'd like to welcome Dr. Jackman.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm introduction. I'm excited to be here. It's been about 6 years since I gave a presentation similar to this at the OOP. So it's an honor to be invited back. Thank you. Getting teens to talk. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. My career as a psychologist has been fueled by giving teenagers a space because as a teenager, I needed a space to be able to talk to parents, my parents, and also to my friends. So I'm excited to be sharing this information with you. As you know, adolescence can be a fiery time between parents and children. And in the U.S., particularly, adolescents are learning and working on separating from their parents and preparing to start their own lives. And parents are struggling with letting go and figuring out how to let go. So it's a very delicate dance. And for families where this is not the cultural norm, it can be even more challenging. By the end of our time together, you'll have some strategies that you can use to communicate positively with your teenager. So we've done some of the welcome and introductions. I'll be doing 3 main things today, giving an overview of adolescent development. We'll be talking about obstacles to positive communication, and then we'll learn some strategies to improve your communication with your team. And I'll be sure to leave time for questions. So whenever I do work with parents and families, I always want to make sure that you're the expert on your children. I have the luxury of seeing them for a few hours, and then they go right back home to you. But my experiences in this work is, one, being a teenager myself and having struggles with my own parents about how to communicate and how to talk with each other, and also in working with children and adolescents for almost 20 years. Today we'll spend some time getting into the brain of an adolescent. We'll try not to spend too much time there, and understanding the tasks and goals that they're working with during this phase of their lives. Second, we'll look at things that get in the way of parents and adolescents having positive communication. And finally, we'll learn some strategies that can help to improve positive communication with you and your adolescent. So let's talk a little bit about adolescent development. So Erickson was a psychologist way back when, and he developed these stages of psychosocial development that talks about the tasks and goals that we must accomplish from infancy until we die. And adolescence falls right in the middle of that, talking about ages 12 to 18 years old. And as I see from your responses to the survey, many of you, for most of you, your children are 14 to 18 year age gap. So some of this that I might be sharing right now might not be new to you. As you know, adolescence is a time of identity. And according to Erickson, the thing that they must do is to figure out who they are so that they can be successful. Otherwise, they'll end up in this place of role confusion, not really knowing where they're at, and may not be able to accomplish the goals and tasks that they may want for themselves. So as part of this phase where adolescents are working on increasing their independence from family, and you may see more reliance on their friendships and people outside of the home. They're also trying on new identities. So they're looking to figure out, who am I? So that's one of the big questions. And they may go through different phases or stages, outfits, fashion, as they try on and figure out that place. They're also wondering what their role will be in life, what career they may explore, what job might they want to do. And then making big decisions. So what do I want for my life? So these are many, many things that our adolescents are facing with and trying to figure out. Often, many times with your support, but sometimes you're trying to do this on their own as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to go inside the adolescent brain. And this is just a comical kind of picture of what teenagers are thinking about. So you have love, romance, takes a big part of their brain. And then memory for chores is that little spot in the corner. Communication skills, another little spot. I love the yin-yang, which love for parents, hate for parents. So these are things that are probably not unfamiliar with you in your communication and conversations with your teenagers. So I want to talk a little bit about what do most adolescents, what are their concerns about, what are the things that they're figuring out. As we kind of mentioned some, we talked about Erikson stages, but I want to point out some more specifically. So to list some of the few, you can see relationships and friendships, often take priority, and in our comical view, love was a big part of the brain. Puberty, they're going through puberty. I have a student who's very funny, and she would say to me, Dr. Jackman, the hormones are raging. And it was just kind of a way she was experiencing different things that she was going on, and oftentimes couldn't necessarily talk about it or figure it out for herself. We know that teenagers need at least 9 to 10 hours of sleep, and many of them don't get close to that. They're figuring out identity. Who am I in terms of my cultural or racial identity, gender, sexual orientation, body image. As I mentioned about the hormones are raging, you might see mood swings. Rebellion is often associated with adolescent age. So these are many of the things that they're figuring out. For many of you, it seems like your adolescents are older, so they're in that place where they're figuring out what does success look like for them, and also what are they going to do in terms of college or career options. So if you look at this list, think about what are some things that you might add. Think about what are the topics that are easy for you to engage with with your child. Some of the topics that are more difficult, and if there are things that you feel are important, but you have a hard time talking about them, then maybe you think about someone in your family network or in your community who might be able to help you engage in those conversations. So you don't think you have to do it all. All these factors can lead to stress, anxiety, and some situational depression. And as parents, you have to be aware of the topics that are hard for you, so you can think about how you can support them. And not talking about a particular topic does not make it go away. And then we'll look to the next slide as we will talk a little bit more about when these conversations or these experiences that the adolescents are facing are more difficult or more serious. So sometimes the tasks of adolescence can become overwhelming and can lead to destructive behaviors or poor functioning. If an adolescent doesn't have healthy coping skills or good support, these normal adolescent concerns can become more serious. And so I've highlighted some of them that, in my work at the high school, I face very frequently. And one of the things that I do want to note is that if you're worried that your child is exhibiting any of these symptoms, it's really important to get some support from a professional to help guide you through that process. So some of the issues to just highlight, self-injury or self-harm, mood disorders, depression and bipolar. And sometimes, again, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes these are more situational symptoms, but if untreated or not addressed, can lead to more severe functioning. So, this topic is not really, I wasn't invited to talk in depth about mental health or emotional concerns. But I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about depression and what that might look like, and we'll also talk a little bit about anxiety. So what are some of the warning signs of depression? We're often, associate depression with sad mood, and that can be true. But oftentimes in adolescence, we see more irritability and more anger. They're just the slightest thing will kind of set them off. And oftentimes they may report feeling empty or numb. Changes in their body, like weight gain or weight loss, changes in their sleeping patterns, can also be some clues in to some more unhelpful or negative functioning. You may notice, or your teachers may report trouble focusing or concentrating in class. They may talk about a lack of motivation. One thing that is often noticeable for parents is when they see their adolescent or their teen withdrawing from friends or not engaging or interested in activities that they would used to be engaged in. That's a very good sign that there may be some depression that's more serious or concerning. Excuse me. Oftentimes, when the depression is getting more severe, you may notice your teen talking about death. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. Excuse me, talking more about death and dying, kind of almost fixated on that topic. And often I see students who are depressed, missing school, or coming into school late. So these are some signs, again, that you want to be mindful of and try to address very soon if you're starting to notice those issues. Next, we'll look at some warning signs of anxiety. And I'd like to say that depression and anxiety often go hand in hand. So it can sometimes be very hard to know which one is primary, which one is more prevalent for the student at times. But here are some tips to help you examine or think about if your adolescent might be facing some anxiety concerns. One thing we notice often is people with anxiety tend to complain a lot about stomach concerns, so either very upset stomach or just trouble sometimes eating or keeping food down. You may see a lot of avoidance, so not wanting to go to school or activities, or sometimes if it's more severe, not wanting to leave home. They may report panic attacks or fear of having a panic attack. Again, as we mentioned in depression, they may have trouble focusing or concentrating. Another key one that I see a lot at my school is frequent trips to the nurse. So sometimes they're going to the nurse 2 or 3 times a day or every day, and that might be a key to some things that are going on. So if your nurse is being in touch with you and trying to explain or examine what might be going on for your child, that might be another clue for you to think about. Also, excessive worries or worries about bad things happening. And also obsessive compulsive disorder, often commonly known as OCD. You might see rituals, or sometimes they're getting fixated on a particular thought, or having difficulty with transition. You might see some sleep disturbance as well, trouble falling asleep. When they try to lay down to go to sleep, their mind might just be turning and churning the day's activities. Some other self-injury also might be scratching or pulling their hair or biting their nails. So these are some topics, again, around anxiety that you should be clued into and watching out for your adolescent. So now we'll think about some adolescent coping strategies. And I've talked about healthy and unhealthy strategies. So we'll look at the healthy strategies first, because these are the ones you want your child to be using. So talking to friends definitely is something that students will tend to do and over-rely on, but I also always want to encourage students to have an adult or parent that they feel comfortable talking to as well. For teenagers, social media is very huge in their lives, and so connecting with posting on Facebook or Snapchat can often be a way that they kind of communicate how they're doing or express some feelings that they may be having. We see a lot for many students listening to music is a very accessible coping skill. They can, it's usually on their phone, they can have their playlist, and it's easy for them to get to. Expressing themselves through art or engaging in sports, those are also healthy ways because it helps them either connect with their creativity or allow the physical activity so they're engaging their body in allowing them to cope with stress that they may have. Helping them to focus on their future goals can also be really helpful. Using relaxation strategies and also taking care of themselves in terms of eating well and eating. And then on the other side, unhealthy strategies, and again, be mindful if you notice your adolescent might be engaging in these things too much. So shutting down or not talking. For many teenagers, spending their time after school in their bedroom is very common. And so, but you want to make sure that you're finding ways to connect with them, because if they're in their room, it's hard to know what they might be feeling or experiencing. Initiating verbal or physical fights, whether with friends or other adults or with family. That might be a way for them to just express the anger and frustration that they're having. Updating social media status, while on one hand it could be healthy, it can also be unhealthy if it's overused, or it creates more conflict in their personal groups. Using or abusing alcohol or drugs, thoughts about harming themselves, thinking about death, killing themselves or killing others. Those are some unhealthy coping strategies as well. And so my work, I work a lot with helping adolescents to develop more positive skills to deal with the stress in their life. So now we're going to move on to talking about obstacles to positive communication. So what makes talking to your teen difficult? Big question. So one is highlighted, I think there are many, many reasons, but I've highlighted about 5 of them. And one is time. Time can, either your time schedule in terms of work may permit you from getting to see them very often, so that can create difficulty in connecting with them. Discomfort or anxiety. So if you do find the time to talk, what do you talk about? Sometimes so much time has passed, it can feel uncomfortable to know how to start up a conversation or what to say to them. Sometimes your teen may not be interested in talking, and it may be, sometimes it could be for that moment, but sometimes it may also be, their way of dealing with their stress and anxiety as well. Thank you. Frustration on your part might be you may have things that you want or need them to do, and they may not be doing them in the time frame that you want it. And so that can make it difficult to have patience or want to engage in a positive conversation. And then technology. We all love it, and we also know it can be difficult in many aspects. So spending time on their phones, computers, and all the other devices in home can also make it difficult for you to connect with them. Sometimes, it works, but they may have a different approach. So you might like to phone call them, they might prefer to text, or they don't pick up your calls when you answer. So technology in that way can make it difficult. And then I want to give a little bit from the parent's perspective, from the child's perspective. So from their perspective, what makes it difficult to talk to their parents? So again, time. I think we both have that. Parents and teens experience that. They may have a lot of homework. There may be schedules and activities after school. Your schedules may not sync up. For them, they may also experience discomfort and anxiety about talking. Like, what do I talk to my parent about? They may think you have an agenda of things that you want to know, and they may not be willing to share those things, so it can make this uncomfortable situation. Trust. Sometimes parents inadvertently have done something to break that trust. Maybe you made a promise that you wouldn't share something, and you end up sharing it with someone and it came back to them, so they don't necessarily trust that if they share something with you again, that you will hold that. They may worry that you may overreact to the situation or that you may judge them. Parents not listening. I hear that almost about every day. And sometimes as a parent, you may not want to hear what your child has to say in the moment, but for them, it's really important to have their voice heard. Again, as they're adolescents trying to develop in a certain self and be independent, they think their opinions value, and they want you to value their opinions. Also, many times they're worried about disappointing their parents and not meeting certain expectations that their parents may have about for them. And so that might make communication at times difficult as well. And my last one, I just couldn't let it go. Parents just don't understand. So reminded by Will Smith. I wouldn't break into song for you today, but you can look it up on YouTube. So, just captured, I think, that time back in the 80s, early 90s. Parents just don't understand, and I think it rings true for teenagers today, too. So let's think a little bit. We've kind of gone through a lot, so I want to take a pause and look at an example and think about where teens come in and parents come in and how communication might go, not be in sync. So we think about the college process. Many of you are there right now, or you will be there in a year or two. And so it's a stressful time. It's an exciting time as well, but there's a lot that's going on there. And for teens, they may need your help, but maybe for some of it, they don't want you involved in the whole process. But as a parent, you want to be there. You want to know, you want to see minute by minute, play by play of what they're doing. They got their applications done, they've written their essay. You want to know everything because you feel the need to help them and make sure that they accomplish this major milestone in their life. But they may be like, not so fast. From the teen perspective, they may want to manage acceptance and rejection letters in their own frame. As a parent, you may want to know right away, the letter comes in, what happens? For some teens, they may want to wait before they open their letter. They want to, have the right frame of mind. Or they may get a letter and they may not be willing to share with you yet. So figuring out how do you respect that space. For teens, they may want to make their own decision about the schools that they apply to and their final decision. And they may want to make that decision on their own. And as a parent, you may feel the need, you may want to be part of that decision-making process for many reasons in terms of geographics, where they're going, but also financial, many things may come into that. So you see, you have two people on two sides, and they have pretty much the same goal, but they're coming at it from different angles. And so for teens, from your perspective, you may seem as though your teenager, your child is shutting you out because they're not giving information that you want in the time frame that you want. And they, on the other hand, may feel that you're being too pushy, you're not giving them space. And so one feels left out and one feels pushed away. And it can lead to resentment and frustration about a time that can be exciting and can bring families together. So trying to figure out how you respect and understand each other's perspective and move through that process will be important. So as we move on to the next section, you want to think about this process as an example or some other process that you need to be working through with your family. So why is talking to your teen on a regular basis important? So one, it creates a safe space for them to talk to you. And I think for most families, they do want to have good communication with their child. And for children, I think they do want to have good communication with their parents. But, how do we do it so it feels safe and feels comfortable for everybody? It increases your connection to each other. So when you are connecting regularly, then you don't have those awkward moments about what do we talk about? Because you're kind of connected and involved in each other's lives. It lets them know that you care about them. No matter how much you tell them, sometimes the more it comes into actions than in words. It keeps you informed about their lives. It allows you to teach them how to solve problems. So when you're at that place where you're feeling like they're not including you in their decision-making process, you can be comfortable that you've given them the tools to help them resolve or make good choices for themselves. Then it gives you a chance also to share your values, and put in parentheses, in a non-judgmental way. So I think that's one thing that adolescents are very cued into if they're feeling like they're being judged in some way. So one of the key strategies for positive communication is listening. And I found this quote and I really liked it. It says, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And what this quote is really saying is that when we're listening, and when we're really listening, it allows you to hear what is, not only what is being said, but what's not being said. So the feelings and worries behind those words that sometimes they don't express directly can often come in when you allow yourself to listen and hear what your teenager is telling you. Many times in our conversations, because of our busy lives, we're kind of only half listening, particularly if we're multitasking or doing many things, or we're just getting our own response back. So we're not giving the person the attention that they need to hear what they have to say. And as a result, we're missing a big part of the unspoken communication. So how do you create a space to listen? So giving your child the full attention. And as I mentioned, we're in a society where we feel that we're more productive when we're doing, as many things at once as we can. Although in the back of our heads, we know it's not possible to give 100% to any one of those things. And so creating a space for you to listen to your child and creating a space where you're giving them your full attention allows your child to share what is on their mind without feeling that they might be interrupted. If you're in a situation where you feel like you can't give them your full attention, it's okay to say, I'm really, it sounds like there's something really important that you want to share with me. I want to make sure that I can give you the time. So can we do this in half hour and an hour when I finish this particular project? So that communicates to them that you really want to take time to talk and that you value what they have to say. Silence is golden. And so I put that there because one of the biggest things about listening is that you have to be quiet. And it can be very hard because, we can get in this place where we want to retort or give our answers back. It can be really hard to resist the urge to ask questions or to give our opinions. Oftentimes, the things that teenagers say for parents may not make any sense. And so we want to correct them. We want to make them get it right. But sometimes just allowing yourself to listen and, just closing your mouth, closing your thoughts, closing your kind of arguments, and just giving the space. I know it's harder, easier said than done, but it's something that can be really critical in helping you to develop positive communication with your child. Using encouraging nonverbal behavior. This is like communication 101 as a psychologist, a beginner psychologist. This is one of the skills that I had to master. How to nod without sounding, patronizing, but allowing the person to know that you're really listening and interested, and communicating without saying words, without using words. And then it's really important before you kind of give your response back to paraphrase or summarize what they've said, so that so that you can share what you've understood from what they said, and they can correct you if you've gotten it wrong. So that helps you to make sure that your communication is on the right track. Because sometimes what we hear, what someone is saying, is actually what they're trying to say. Connect. So developing positive connections with your children, with your teenagers, is really important. And it's a time where their lives are very busy, and your lives can be very busy. A lot of their time is spent outside of the home, and so finding time to connect with each other can be challenging, but it's so important to do. And connecting with your child allows your teen to teach you about their lives. And it allows you to kind of get inside their heads a bit and kind of figure out what it is that's going on. Using open-ended questions. So, our tendency is to ask questions that require a yes or no answer. Sometimes we do it not necessarily intentionally, but when we get the one-word answers, we're like, why are you not talking to me? But you didn't really ask them a question that allows them to expand. And so, tell me about your day. Tell me what you learned in math. Trying to be as specific as you can in your questions will allow you to get some information that you're looking for. I also learn their lingo. So it doesn't mean you have to get very much into it, but you just need a couple things to help you connect. I kind of fake my way through working with my teenagers quite a bit. I pick up on some of the words and I throw it back at them. They have a clue what I say, especially if I say it in the wrong way. Especially I'm like throwing shade. So it helps them to correct me too, but also just it kind of levels the playing field, and they feel like, okay, you're really genuine about engaging. The social media thing can be really overwhelming. You don't have to go on everything, but you should know some of the things that they're on. and learning more about their friends and meeting their friends. As a teenager, my mom knew all of my friends. They come to my house, they go to their homes. And I feel something that's kind of lost sometimes in our society, but I think it's really important because just overhearing or listening to the things they talk about also allows you to be more in their lives and hearing what they're disgusted and passionate about. As I mentioned before, practicing listening skills is a good way to connect. And figure out the time to have some regular time together as a family. Again, that can be busy, but it's such an important time to create that space. It's regular and predictable for your teenager. And also, I said creating special time together. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. I have a few slides. But just, it doesn't have to be hours together, but 10, 15 minutes, doing the dishes, cooking. I try to encourage people not to, when they're planning things to do together, to make sure that they're free or low cost. So there's not that, it doesn't have to be about buying things or doing these really extravagant things. But those small things really matter. So, I'm just going to highlight some other strategies that you can go through the list that we can talk about. So these are some no-nos on the right-hand side. So the one thing that, as a child, I hated when my parents would nag or lecture, it would just be such a turnoff. When parents criticize or judge, or when you jump to conclusions without hearing the full story. Sometimes, we've heard part of the story or a side of the story from somebody else, and we assume that that's true. But, they want to give you their truth as well. And so really create a space and resist the urge to make a decision without hearing the full, their side of the story as well. Kind of getting on your soapbox with lecturing. If you prevent them from sharing things that they want to share. Bringing up past mistakes. My mom was famous for that. And she watches this. She might be embarrassed to hear me say that. But bringing up past mistakes in Caribbean culture, when a parent was mad at you, everything you did for the last 5 years was sure to come up. And that was such a turnoff, and that would just kind of shut her up. So those are things that really stop communication from moving forward. And again, shaming your team, being degraded in any way. That does not help with the communication forward. So some things to do, listen. You've noticed I'm talking about that a lot, okay? So that should be one thing you try as one of your strategies as you get towards the end. Allowing your team to share their perspective and listening to their perspective, acknowledging their feelings. I think, and as an adult, that happens when your interactions with people in your life, they don't allow you to give your piece or say your piece. It leaves you feeling unfulfilled or unsatisfied. So your teams also have those feelings. So always remember that, kind of put yourself in their position as well. Showing them respect, valuing their opinion. I think one of the things that as parents sometimes don't necessarily do is sharing their own feelings or experiences. I think teenagers want to hear from you. They want to hear the things that you're thinking about and that you value. And so, again, it allows you guys to really share and connect with each other. Adjust your mindset. I couldn't really figure out how to title this slide, but this is what I came up with. So a couple of different things as parents, there are things that we might do, but there's a way to change. If we notice that things aren't working, there's things that we can modify in our behavior. So one of the things is allowing your child to make mistakes and to learn from mistakes. I think as a parent, we don't want them to make the mistakes we've made. We want to rescue them from making these awful mistakes. But, oftentimes some of the best learning comes from making a mistake. The way that I got to learn Boston, which is the worst developed city in terms of the roads, was that every time I was going somewhere, I got lost. And then when I needed to find that place, like, oh, that's where I got lost before. So allowing them to make mistakes, I think, can be hard sometimes to figure out which mistake is the big mistake of death, or which mistake is, it's okay, they'll recover from that. But I think giving them opportunities to learn through mistakes is really valuable. Embracing flexibility. So being willing to compromise and negotiate, and being open to new ways of approaching a task. I think one of the things about adolescents is, they don't have the fears or the no's that we might have experienced as adults. So they're very open and come up with very creative solutions. And I think being open to that is really important. It gives them confidence if they come up with something that we think might work, or we're willing to try and see how that might work. Reserve the right to take a time out when you're upset. I think this is sometimes, as parents, we don't kind of model for teenagers, and so if there's a time where you're upset, it's really important to step away from the situation or to take a break, because the worst thing to make a decision and to make this kind of blanket situation where you've given a consequence or punishment that really, when you're in a calm or rational mood, you want to do it, and then you're stuck either going back on your word or putting this punishment that also punishes you. So I think, situations where you're feeling really overwhelmed with something that they've done, really taking this time out to take a step back and figure out what it is that you really want to do, how you want to approach that situation before deciding. Reflecting on your communication style is really important. So knowing who you are and how you communicate is going to be helpful as you're understanding how your child also communicates with you. And then one skill I think is always really important is being open to apologizing. At the top of this slide, we talk about making mistakes, so we all make mistakes. It's part of living and being human. And I think one of the things that adolescents value is when their parents can come and say, I took them at a different way or could have handled the situation differently. I think it also shows them that you're willing to, again, level the playing field or be willing to own up to things that you've done that weren't the best as well. So for your practice, I want you to think about a recent situation or interaction that you had with your teen that did not go well. When you get that situation in mind, given all the things that we talked about today, think about one thing that you could have done differently in terms of communication and one thing that you would like to do to improve the communication. So that's your homework. We have just a few more slides and then we'll get to your questions. We talked earlier about finding special time, so I'm not going to go into that too much because we've already kind of talked about it. But again, just find an activity, but you always want to include your child in picking the activity together. One of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about communication is that it's never too late to change the way that you communicate with your teenager or with anyone. And so, if you are going to make a change or you're willing to make a change, I think it's good to be transparent and to say, some of the things or some of the ways that we've been communicating, I don't think are helpful or allowing us to connect in a way that we want to. And I'm going to be trying some new things out. I want you to help support me in that. So, this is kind of a sample script. You definitely will want to modify or change it for your own voice. But it just, the goal is to just be transparent and upfront that you want things to be different and that you're going to be willing to try things out differently. And then just to summarize, talk about listening, communicate that you care and love them unconditionally, that your love doesn't matter if they've done something good or bad, love them regardless. Building communication is an ongoing process, and so it's work. So you have to keep working on it. As a parent, you also have to share yourself. It can't just be one-sided. You can't just expect them to share with you. You have to be willing to share and to model what that might look like. As I said before, it's never too late to open up communication with your child. So, and you being part of this conversation shows that you're willing to, that you believe that and are willing to change as well or do things differently. And as I said, talk to them about your desire to improve communication and let them know that you'll be trying to move things out. And that's my piece for now. So now we can open it up to questions.
Great. So thank you very much. As we go along, please use the question and answer box to submit your questions, and we can send them along. One question that we saw from the registration form was one parent says, and there are a lot of parents here who are parents of current seniors or current juniors. One question was, what changes can I expect with my kids when they move to college, and the best way to support them long distance? Do any of these communication strategies change when you're dealing with students who are, or children who are now, hundreds of miles away?
I think they don't necessarily change, but they're more challenging, right? Because they are now not home. So access to them, especially if they've moved away from school, access to them is kind of on their time. I think with cell phones, it's a little bit easier. When I was off to college, I had to be in my room for my parents to reach me. Now cell phones give more mobility. But I think if you have a good foundation in your communication, that hopefully will translate. I think talk to them ahead of time before they leave. What will our communication look like going forward? I think it's good to put that, to be transparent about that. Let's talk about that. Sometimes they may promise things, and then they get to college, they're caught up with friends and adjustments and everything, and they may not communicate in a way or as often or frequently as you may have discussed. And so again, being open to say, maybe we can figure out a time once a week that we talk. Again, they're going to be looking for space from you, some of them, and they want you to respect that for them as well.
Great, thank you. And one other thing that I saw come up a lot in the registration, a lot of parents seem to have difficulties talking to their teens about dating in particular. Are there any of your strategies that are particularly relevant when you're talking to teens about dating?
I think, always a soft approach. So you're not going to go in like, detective and suspects with the machine bullet questions. You definitely want to create a space. So what's your friend, talk about things in there. What's your friends like? Oh, who's your best friend? And you may kind of work towards that question. I think sometimes also giving space like, I know this is an age that you're interested in dating. So sometimes giving information without asking and expecting them to tell you things is a good way to communicate. I know adolescence is a time of dating, and maybe I started dating. My parents allowed me to date when I was this particular age. These were some of the things I was thinking about. So somebody sharing your experience, sharing information that you have without asking them questions can be a good soft way of doing that. And then leaving it open to say, if you have questions about this, it is something that we can talk about. But then not leaving it there because they may not come in at. So, keep bringing it up in different ways, but not interrogating. Try not to interrogate.
Okay. One question we got was, can I get a copy of this presentation? Yes, the presentation will be shared. Hopefully we'll be back within a week or so with the presentation and the recording. Linda, I don't know if you saw any other questions that might be good to address now.
Good. One of them was, how do we get our child to open up and share more with our family? And I think you addressed some of those. Right. That may have been very specific to that parent.
Mm-hmm. So it's hard to know what the family dynamic is at this time. But again, creating spaces for families to do things together. I know I had a parent who would tell me, whenever I wanted to talk to my child, I would say, let's go for a drive, or let's go to the supermarket. And sometimes being in the car, you're not looking at each other. So this, and particularly if it's a longer drive, allows them to relax and kind of get into the rhythm, the car moving, whatever is about emotion, but allows them to kind of open up about topics. So think about the things that work, that's already working in terms of your communication, and just build or expand on those.
Sorry, Linda, I have one question that just came in. And the parent asks or says, lines of communication with his parent's child are now more open, but he says things that are painful to hear. What are some sort of techniques for staying emotionally still and open when painful things come up in conversation?
That's very hard, and I think I think connecting with your emotions. So I think being able to say, thank you for sharing that. That's hard for me to share. It's hard to hear, but I'm so appreciative that you're sharing that with me. Again, not given any expectations, and I think finding your own support in dealing with those emotions. But I think, if you're sad, it's okay to be sad because you're having a real reaction to what they're sharing. But appreciate it, and, you don't want to kind of, get too sad in that moment because then they may worry then about, can you handle this information? But you can say, thank you for sharing that. It's hard to hear. But it's okay. I can deal with it. I feel better that you're sharing this with me than you're holding this in on your own. And if it's something to do with safety, I think, again, thinking about if there's a resource in your family or your community that maybe this person, he may need to have another space other than you to talk with them. But I think that's great that, he's sharing these things or she's sharing these things with you.
Any other questions from your end?
Talked a little bit about mood swings, and one of the questions was about angry outbursts when a teenager is in a period of time where they're swinging back and forth from highs to lows in different moods and having an angry outburst and taking a lot out on the parent. How do you get back on track and then try and establish a way for that not to keep happening?
So again, depends on what's going on with the outburst. Is it, kind of a normal reaction to something difficult that happened, or just kind of a mood swing that's related to, clinical depression? So kind of being able to figure out where the anger is coming from. I think it can be hard to sit, kind of like the question just now, sit with those angry emotions because it brings things up for us as well. As adults, as people, we're reacting to that. I think if you're noticing that they're really angry and they're being safe, maybe taking yourself out of the situation if you feel like it's bringing up too much for you. And when they've calmed down, you guys can come back together and talk. I think setting expectations or guidelines for anger. Like, anger is okay. I always tell people anger is okay. It's one of our emotions, but it's how we express it. That's the key in terms of whether we're being safe or not. And so setting some guidelines, not in that moment when they're angry, because when they're there, there's no rational conversation happening. So, when they've calmed down, finding time to talk about what was going on and how we can move forward. What are some of my expectations when you're angry? Whether it's taking space in your room, but setting some clear guidelines about that and inviting them to be part of a conversation as well.
Another one that came up during registration was how they could convince their child that staying up late and procrastination was not going to pay off.
I smiled at that one because I'm like, as an adult, how do you do that? Linda and I were emailing after midnight last night. I don't know, I was always a night owl. Maybe my mother should have done better at making me go to bed early. But if I could work things my way, I would stay up late and sleep in. And if I had a job that allowed me to do that, that would be great. I think again, it's modeling good habits. Helping them put time management into place. Sometimes they're staying up late because they're just not good organizers or good managers of their time. So maybe doing calendar checks with them, make sure they have planners, and helping them prioritize. Sometimes that can be helpful so that it can get rest. I think another thing, excuse me, that gets in the way is their cell phones. So many times their cell phones are right by their bed. It's on. As texts are coming in, while they're sleeping, they're responding to those texts. So again, talk about guidelines about, talk about the benefits of sleep. They're not really tuning into that. That's not sufficient enough for that. But really talking about habits in terms of cell phones, whether they're in airplane mode or something at nighttime, so that they can really get good. So thank you. This was a pleasure. I hope that the information was helpful. You'll have, as Nick said, you'll have access to the slides and to the presentation later on. If you have any questions, I'm available by email or cell phone. I know many of you are around the country, so just be mindful we're in Eastern time. But thank you again, and thank you both for inviting me to do this today.
Yeah, also, Charmaine, thank you again so much, and Linda and Nick, this has just been an awesome talk. Even as a person with a 10-year-old, I can see so many things already happening with my daughter, and this is very helpful, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. I also benefited from having a 19 and 24-year-old. I learned a lot. Thank you. I wanted to remind all of you that we'll be sending out the email with the link to this survey. If you would please take some time to give us your feedback, we really appreciate it. We can only get better through and more responsive to you through your help. But I also want to remind you that we are having another webinar in January, on Tuesday, January 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on financial aid and college affordability. We are very lucky to have Meredith Barnhart, who is the Director of Integrated Communications at the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. So we're really looking forward to that, and we'll be sending you out some information about that, and we would love to have your questions ahead of time on that as well. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.